Hey, welcome to a virtual chat with Stark Reflections. My name is Mark Leslie Lefebvre, and I'm actually here with a few of the people from the Uncollected Anthology. Jason, Kari, welcome to the virtual Stark Studios.
Hey, good to see you.
Good to be here.
So let's talk a little bit about. Okay. So for first thing, before we get into Uncollected Anthology, you guys kind of know each other, right? A little bit of a backstory.
A little bit. We got married in 1992.
Hey,
So
that's I remember that year. That was the year my first short story was published. That's cool.
there you go. So we've known each other for a little while. Yes, our publishing company is Sparrow Publishing. So that's the two of us.
That is awesome. So how did you guys meet? Were you writers when you met? So 92, that would have been college days?
It was
Since we're the same age?
yes, we're all born in the same year. It was college days. We met in the computer lab. You couldn't be any more geeky than that. It was a Macintosh computer lab was where we met. And we weren't writers, but we were both English majors and worked on, we'd classwork together and things like that. But it was in the back of my mind to work on writing.
Okay.
But we both ended up drifting into computer work for several years. And while we were in Atlanta, that was what we both did. And that's really helped, that network engineering and technology background when it comes to figuring out publishing, as it changes so quickly, and it informs a ton of our stories as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And in Atlanta, I worked for a small publishing company that did specialty yellow pages. So, all that stuff is now obsolete because they were doing actual cut and paste layout on a layout board and things like that. But it did teach me that, because I knew these people personally, I was like, if they can do it, I probably can too. And that's not any kind of slam. It's just when you realize that, hey, normal human beings can do this publishing stuff. We just made it more easier to jump into that.
Yeah. So in terms of the writing that you do you guys write I know you write individual stories, but do you collaborate much? How does that work? How much do you write together, and how much of the stuff that you do is independent of each other's work?
We have never collaborated. We've talked about it a few times.
You have never collaborated?
No, well, we've tossed ideas around.
Okay. Well, that's different. Yeah, because that's what you do. You live together. You're both writers, so you're gonna talk about a story you're working on, I imagine, right?
Right. Well, I've gotten more and more to where I used to have Jason read things right away, or even I would have him read back to me in the evenings what I was writing. But now I'm like, yeah, you can see it when it's done. That's changed. But we've discussed collaboration, but we have different approaches that might make it very challenging. Because I will write every day. I've been on a writing streak since 2019, at least 250 words a day.
What, since 2019, even with the pandemic and everything, you just kept going?
Absolutely. In fact, I wrote more during that time. It was kind of an
Wow.
escape. But and I write novellas and novels and have series, and I'll just say I'm a little more organized and a little more regular, have more of a routine.
Right.
And I do worry that would cause a collaboration to be unnecessarily dramatic, but we might try it someday. We have to have solid ground rules, though.
What are some of the rules? I am curious.
It would have to be something like, okay, well, this is a writing day. I'm going to write my chapter. And that means you have to write your chapter as well,
Right.
instead of, okay, I've written 12 chapters in a row and you're saying you're going to do it soon.
Okay.
And from my perspective, if I say, well, I'll get my chapter done Thursday night, that means don't ask me about it until Thursday night, because chances are good I'm going to wait until Thursday night just because that's how I am.
I have no idea. I don't understand that last minute thing at all.
I've got the ADD works best under pressure brain.
Oh yeah, of course. The deadline. Oh, it's due tomorrow. Okay, exactly. I'll work on it till 11:59.
It's due tomorrow at noon. I better start at 11.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of thing. So the one thing I did notice, because we're friends on social media. I mean, we're friends in real life, but I see you mostly on social media, but especially since 2019, is you also run together, right?
We
You,
have
you
been doing
yeah. Well, you started that. Was that during the pandemic or just before?
we started really doing, regular, physical activity in September of 2020, and then September of 2021, we started running, and we also run very differently. I am, um, not I am a, I will get there kinda runner. I am not
Okay.
fast, but I can run for a very long distance. So we'll often go out to the trail together, but we run separately. We take separate cars and,
Right.
often listen to audiobooks and things like that. 'Cause I don't and I'll often stop and, "Oh, I wanna see what that flower is. I wanna see what that bird is. I wanna see," and take pictures or whatever. But we high five each other as we go and just
Oh,
get it done, which writing is kinda the same way.
that's funny.
Yeah, not like riding, but my approach to running and exercise in general is I just want to get it over with. So I've got to
Yeah.
run a mile today, so I'm going to get that mile over with so I can go back home.
Because I'm going to wait till the last minute. I'm going to drive out there,
I
run a mile,
exercise
and
because I should.
I see which I catch the pattern here of the way you do things. So so let's talk about Uncollected Anthology. I think I know a little bit about where it originated and some of the people because I think we hang out in some of the same writer spaces and have been seen together in some of these writer spaces. But so when we talk about the Uncollected Anthology, so what is this Uncollected Anthology? What's sort of the genesis of the whole project?
It's the fun thing about it, it's urban fantasy short stories. Most of the time, occasionally, there's a veer off. There was a science fiction one a couple years ago, which was a lot of fun,
Okay.
and then we had a Western one, which was a lot of fun.
Okay.
The main thing is, Uncollected is we each publish our own short stories.
Okay.
So and there's also a collected volume that is available in ebook and print. But for example, the newest one, the Where Creatures and Conundrums, my story is available standalone on our publishing store, as well as on Amazon, Kobo, all the usual suspects, and you can buy the entire volume. So that's what is Uncollected about, as we each publish our own one. There you go. So we all are responsible for publishing our own, and we work together. We choose the theme together. We the You'll notice that the top and bottom of the book covers are the same. So we work with those colors. We know what those are in advance. We usually collaborate on the title together and things like that. But we're each responsible for our own stories and go in our own directions there, which gives us a lot of freedom, which definitely appeals to indie writers. Oh, Mark, you're muted.
I know I hit the mute button so I could cough, and then I forgot to unmute it. That happens, especially at live broadcasts. But so what happens is you publish them separately. So you'll publish them, for example, to Amazon and to Kobo and to the Barnes and Noble and Apple and the various platforms, right?
That's right. And several of us have our own stores as well.
Right.
We
Oh
do
yeah,
this.
of course. And your own web store on your own author website. And so
Exactly.
when people go to uncollectedanthology.com, for example, they'll see the latest theme.
Exactly. And where they can buy the main collection, but then we each individually publicize our own stories and the whole anthology. So
Right.
you like in my when I post about it, I'll post, "Hey, here's ours available on Spiral Publishing, and here you go to uncollectedanthology.com, and a great service called Books to Read, which I know
Yeah.
you're familiar with,
I am.
which lets us put together one page that has all the stores available. So you go to the one store and you can see Amazon, Kobo, Apple, Barnes& and Noble, and choose what you wanna buy instead of
Okay.
being forced into one ecosystem.
Oh, that is cool. I was just going to the Uncollected Anthology website and grabbing the cover because I realized we had the 8 different stories individually, but I realized that the cover of the actual collected part of it, because so it is Picard. I'm just popping that up there. I guess Jason, you and I can peek around the corner just while that's popped up on the screen. But then, yeah, that's kind of what, and I should get rid of the little banner here so people can see. That's sort of the cover, and that actually shows people that they could get it all together if they wanted to, or they could just buy individual stories from each author directly or on the various retailers.
Exactly. And then we add after a certain time period, then we can publish them in a different format if we want to, or I could put them in a collection, things like that, which is, I love the flexibility of it. And it can also start new series worlds. In fact, the story I have in this one is the second in a series that started
Oh,
for an Uncollected Anthology.
okay.
It's, I often go to, we lived in Atlanta for 10 years in the 90s,
Right.
which was an odd time on planet Earth in general. But it was especially odd in Atlanta and in our little neighborhood. And I often go back there for fantasy stories because some of the things that happened during that time can only be explained by the supernatural. So
Okay.
that's what I play with. So
Okay.
the first story was a very unusual home inspector. And then I went to one of her colleagues for this story, for the were creature story, who can inspect things in a house in a way that no human could. And that just was too much fun to play with.
And so you've returned to that. So the way that it works is it's quarterly, right? Every quarter there's, and is there so this is an example. So Jason's not in the most recent one, but Jason is a member of the Uncollected Anthology. So there's what, 14 authors, 15 maybe authors, and then there's is there a given number of stories per each issue, or does that flex?
That depends on, we have several members, but whoever is the contribution number varies. Like sometimes it will be a smaller, there have been some that have been huge, and the story length can vary as well. So
Right. Yeah.
occasionally, you get rolling on a story and you've got a novella, but that's fine, particularly because we are publishing our own. So
Yeah.
that's one of the fun things. The story length can vary quite a bit.
And you're not doing a print version, so you don't have to worry about, oh, the cost of the print and a 20,000 word story versus a 3,000 word story and all that stuff, right?
Right. That we have the collected print version, but as far as my own story,
Yeah.
it's fine. Although we do
Oh,
publish,
there is a collected print version. Okay.
there is a collected print version, but I will show you. We do short stories through Spiral Publishing in this teeny
Yeah.
little format.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So
I love that. Yeah.
we can do the teeny little books, and that's what we eventually put our short stories out in, just for
Right.
fun. And they will fit in your pocket.
Well, I mean, it depends on the trim size you go with, but I mean, I like those small ones because when I do a lot of in-person events. I got the $25 books, the $20 books, the $15 books, even some of them are 10. But again, with the cost of paper and printing, it's difficult to get that. Those little 70-page, 60-page booklets, I can sell for $5. I'm not making much on them, or I can give them away, and it didn't cost me as much as a 300-page book would cost. So they're great for promotional. Oh, you want to try one of my stories? Here, I'll sign it. Right, and it's not
Yeah.
that. It's not like you're giving
There
away.
might be a few of those in the hotel room dresser drawers here and there,
Okay, fair enough.
possibly.
Because you have them in your pockets when you're running, and then you stop, check a flower out, and then deposit a book. Right.
I've left them in airport lounges, things like that. I mean, it's kind of like a large business card.
I like that idea.
I've accidentally dropped them in the grocery store, and someone says, "Hey, you dropped this." Oh, yeah, it's just a book I wrote. Here, you want to check it out? You can have it.
And they're like, what? That is so cool. All right, so let's so where creatures and conundrums was the theme of this particular one. So Kari, what was so you said this is set in that fictional, or maybe not so fictional, version of Atlanta. What's your story, and give us what's it about?
This story is straying from her human lifetime, and this is a person is going to buy a house, which is always a scary proposition. We did own a house when we were in Atlanta, which we bought when we were 24, which seems insane to me that we managed that at that age now. But I don't know what kind of insanity.
The cost is different back then than it is now. I don't know how someone 24 could be able to afford to even rent a place right now.
I know that that's a horrid problem.
Yeah.
But the scary aspect of looking at it, you step back from this house, you've just signed all the paperwork, and you go, yeah, if that roof breaks or that window breaks or that water heater breaks, I can't call anybody. so,
Yeah.
so you want to going in, you want to have a good idea of what the situation is. So I just imagined my first person who does like larger real estate inspections. What the first person does in the previous story, she maps out the area, but it's
Okay.
in a different way. She maps
Okay.
it out on different dimensions.
Okay.
So if you're buying in that story, it was a business property, and the owner, the person getting ready to invest in the business property, well, I want to know what's going on in these other dimensions. Is there something I need to be concerned about? Because sometimes they bleed through. So in that story, she went through and mapped the area, which I had all kinds of fun with. That was a longer story. And this time I thought, for a shifter, for a were creature, I wonder about a creature who could change her form in the way she needed to make sure your house is safe, to make sure you're not going to find
Okay.
any unexpected surprises. Because our Atlanta house was over 100 years old. Constant surprises. You never knew what
Yeah.
you were going to find behind the walls. So that was what I got into. And I just started writing with no idea what she was going to find. And I was pleasantly surprised. Oh, this is fascinating. And I didn't even know what form she was going to take when I started writing. So it was a lot of fun to write.
So how before I get into sharing a little bit about my story in this one, how do you guys decide the theme, and how often, like how far in advance, how does that fall together where you say, okay, the theme is were creatures, and then Kari's like, okay, what about this? I've got a story in this universe. How does that work?
The themes are decided a good couple years out. Like, we knew
Really?
about this one a while back, and we're already looking at some of the ones going into next year. And
Wow.
we have meetings a couple times a year, virtual meetings,
Yeah.
and get together and discuss what the theme, and also very importantly, since you're with us, who the guest author is going to be.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Those are chosen. Like, for example, with Were Creatures, we know about your Canadian werewolf. Wonderful stories. So your name was immediately at the top of the list. So
Right.
it was, okay, well, we need to talk to Mark and see if he's something he'd be interested and able to do. And if, oh yeah, this is our theme, we're going full steam ahead.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because it was interesting. I was in the middle of trying to finalize a book that's coming out later this month when I got, sort of the invite. And I went, well, do I put the book aside to work on this story? But I really want to do this story because again, I had an idea and I thought it's not worthy of a longer piece. It's not even a scene in a novel because I never wanted to set my werewolf lives in New York City and often uses Central Park as a place where he has to go and turn into a wolf and run around and all that stuff. I've purposely avoided the winter months because like that's got to be a pain in the butt, waking up naked in the snow. And so I thought, why don't I explore that? Explore what it might be like for him to wake up in the snow naked. So obviously he's chilly, and the clothes that he kept hidden are under a snowdrift. So the first thing he has to deal with is finding the snow, the clothes that are all wet and covered and stuff like that. And so it was just that was just my idea. And then I just thought, okay, well, what's that going to be like for him as he whines and moans and complains about the slings and arrows of an outrageous winter storm? And so I thought it was a great, when I got invited by you guys, it was a great opportunity for me to play. And again, I say that in the most creative, fun sense, but and it sounds like you do that as well. Oh, I'm going to play with this idea and see what I can do with it, see where I can go with it, because it allows you an opportunity to really, I guess, maybe experiment. Because in your universes, and you have more than one, you may decide this theme is going to fit here. This one's going to be completely standalone. This one's going to touch that. Yeah, I mean, you have stuff all over the map, right? Or all over the maps.
Exactly. I do. One of the previous stories I had in Uncollected Anthology was I have a group of near immortal people who travel to fresh new bodies. I'll just put it that way. And it's set in current day in Wales and Scotland. But I had an idea for, well, okay, I'm sure these people are all over the world. So aren't they in the US as well? And my mind went, oh, I want to play with the Old West.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I put one of these people in the Old West in an actual ghost town in Nevada, but when it was, of course, thriving. And
Oh,
that was so much fun because, there's a cultural shift. It's not
right.
going to be the same. It's not the same Celtic mythology and things like that. It's the mythology of the Old West, but while it was being written.
Yeah.
And yes, play is exactly the right word. That's how that was.
Oh, that is so cool. Jason, do you do the same thing? Do you play in different universes in the various themes for, I mean, this anthology project or other ones?
Yeah, well, like I've got it's a lot of fun because I can take stories that are just standalone, or else they're in a certain universe, but they don't really fit in any of my other collections because I haven't done a collection of just these stories yet. But like I've got more than one story in the Uncollected Anthology of what I call my Atlanta Leprechaun series. This bunch of stories I started writing before I ever knew about American Gods by Neil Gaiman, but it's just the leprechauns have moved into Atlanta and taken over all the vice trade. But you know, and they're fun and they're silly and they're
Which
short
we're not sure is
and
fiction or
they're
reality.
just
Yeah.
it's a great fit for that because again, like Kari was saying, we can just kind of cut loose and play because all we have to do is hit a theme, and run with it. And trying to think of what all else I've had in there. I don't remember what I've written. I have no idea what my bibliography is, so it's part of it. But we got to play with dragons, the Old West thing, Weird West stuff. I got to play with just I had written a short piece for just a writing workshop about a guy who's dying of thirst out in the desert, and that turned into a story that I put into Uncollected Anthology. It's just because you've got, like you said, you've got a quarter, you've got several months to let these ideas percolate in the back of your head, and then all of a sudden you come up with something that's just
Right.
generally completely out there compared to my other stuff, and it's just gangs of fun to do it that way, and just let it rip.
Do you guys ever write in each other's universes? So I noticed you both, because you lived in Atlanta, obviously it's a fruit for lots of content, but do you ever write in each other's settings? Is there a crossover like in the Stephen King multiverse kind of world?
No, well,
We did. That has happened a little bit. We both also have odd Appalachia stories,
Ah, of
which,
course.
I mean, it's irresistible when
Yeah.
the characters are everywhere and the accent. Neither one of us really have it, but we grew up different places, but always coming back here because we're in the mountains in Virginia, and so we can hear that language in our heads.
Right.
And so we have odd turns of phrase and things like that. Myths and legends that come from all the world. Our Virginia is was a lot of coal, things like that, and timber and lumber, things like that. But the melting pot here was comparable to San Francisco at one point. People came from all over the world. There's a
Really?
cemetery. Yes, it's not very well known. There's a cemetery not far from us that we visited because it came up in one of my stories. The tombstones you can find Hungarian, you can find German, you can find Russian, just because people came here to work in the coal mines and in the lumber fields.
Right.
So the mythology that's grown up here, and there's amazing stonework in some of these tiny towns from Italian stonemasons that came here. So the things that have gotten twisted and turned around, we grew up hearing about odd things from our grandparents and great grandparents. And so it's irresistible to play with it. There's a creative air here. A
Yeah.
lot of Scots Irish, but then you got all the other odd things. So I have a whole network of Appalachian towns that I set stories in, and Jason has a couple. And we have been I've been kind of putting some of his characters in my stories, and he does the same. Not really in the settings, but oh gosh, this character needs to talk to another sheriff. Oh, he's got a sheriff that
Uh,
can show up in my world. So it's fun to have that cross-pollination opportunity.
Yeah, like Kari was saying, there was a pipeline here from Ellis Island back in the day, pretty much. And each coal company, each lumber company had their own little company town, and they would spring up towns wherever there was a mine or a lumber operation going through. There's a million tiny little towns around here. So putting together our Appalachian towns, we can just have towns that specialize in a certain form of weirdness, put it that way. There's the town where the dead grandmother tells her kid her sheriff grandson what he needs to do to fix the problems in his dreams and things like that. And then there's towns where there's a really thin line between here and there, and the stuff from there sometimes comes here. And the walk-on characters from each other's worlds are great, because you just have this person, and it's like an Easter egg for people that read both of our stories,
right. Yeah.
oh, I recognize her. She was in that story that Kari wrote, and that's a lot of fun. And we have written, Kari hasn't published hers, which she should, but we have both written different versions of the world in a story that I wrote called The Developmental Adventures of Phil, which I'm sure you've heard of. And Kari had been writing for a while, and I was just playing around and throwing ideas out there. And Kari told me if I didn't write the story that I was coming up with characters for, she was going to do it, and she did, and she got everything wrong, of course. So I had to go back and write it myself. But her version of it is very good, and I wish she would do something with it.
Awesome. Yeah, so that is fantastic. So, any idea? You must know. Are you allowed to share what some of the forthcoming themes are? I mean, we're not going to say the next one's going to be, but do you have an idea of some of the themes? Are you allowed to say anything? Oh, you're muted.
I've not heard that I can't. I know one that we have a lot. There's some really fun behind the scenes going around is ethereal entertainment.
Oh,
Which
okay.
might have something to do with broadcast networks that go into very odd areas.
Yeah,
That's all I will say. But and also there's one of the holidays that lends itself very well are the solstices. So there may be something in the pipeline along those lines. And it's one of the great fun things about this project is not only do we get to see what sparks in our imaginations, we work with some amazing writers on these projects. So my goodness, I get to read a story by Dale Dramatis or Annie Reed or Leah Cutter, just occasionally Bob Deshanek. I mean, the people that I get to be involved with, and also I get to see what they come up with on the same theme
yeah.
is so exciting. And of course, our wonderful guest authors to see, because that's a whole different perspective, because guest authors haven't been involved in the whole planning and discussion. So they're going to come with an entirely different approach to the whole thing. So it's just so much fun. It's constant refilling the well, not only for what I'm writing, but what I get to read. So it's just a pleasure all the way.
Awesome.
And coming up with and doing these anthologies, anytime you're involved in an anthology, you get to see how other people approached the theme of the anthology. And it's always interesting to me because, wow, I never would have thought of that. And, they probably say the same thing about my story. But in this case, where it's an ongoing project, the Uncollected Anthology is an ongoing project, we know these people and we've read a lot of their writing, and still it's surprising. Wow, I had no idea you would come up with that. That's pretty cool. And so, it's never boring, never bored.
I love that. I love that so much. Well, guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me, for sharing some insights and tips about your writing, your running, and obviously Uncollected. And just a reminder for anyone who's just listening and not looking at the video, you can go to uncollectedanthology.com to check out this quarter's theme, Where Creatures and Conundrums, or all the previous ones, or if you're watching this in the future, hello, future people, you can check out what the new ones are. And we got a little bit of a sneak peek. Kari, Jason, thanks so much for hanging out with me today.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun. It's good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you guys as well.
Good to see you. Thanks so much for having us on.
Good night, everyone.
Take care.
Yoink, yoink, yoink. Oh yeah, I forgot to end it. Now I'm ending it.